Brewster Whitmire, Wasco Electric Co-op, representing electric cooperatives.
Andy Crocker, Rockwood Water People's Utility District, representing special districts.
Lee Tonello, City of Portland, representing City of Arkansas.
I'm Isaac Myram. I'm with Cascade Natural Gas. I work in the Public Awareness and Damage Prevention Department, and I'm a guest.
Kim Boyd with One Call Concepts.
Scott Gallegos, One Call Concepts.
Good morning, John Clemens, Executive Director at OUNC.
Good morning, Kitty O'Keefe, Executive Assistant and Outreach Coordinator for the OUNC. And now I will look at people joining us via Zoom. Good morning, Adam Franco,
Good morning, Adam Franco with One Call Concepts.
Connor Tony,
Morning, everyone. Connor Tony, Love Incorporating, representing expert.
Frank. Frank Clinton,
Frank Planton with One Call Concepts.
Kevin Tennessee,
Kevin Hennessy. Good morning, everyone. A guest of this meeting, representing OPUC. Thank you.
Thomas,
Good morning, Kyle Thomas, representing OUCCs.
Megan Moore,
Did we hear any of that?
Yeah.
Okay. Megan Moore, Central Lincoln PUD, representing PUDs.
Thomas. I'm sorry, Michelle Tyree. She just joined. How about Scott Crosby?
Good morning, everyone. Scott Crosby, Cascade Utilities, representing telephone companies with less than 50,000 customers.
And Michelle Tyree.
Sorry, just joined. Am I on, or how do we want to do this? Sorry.
Just go ahead and introduce yourself at this time.
Thank you. Michelle Tyree of Vista Utilities and KUCC President. Thank you.
Did I miss anybody? Okay, perfect. Thank you all again. If you are a visitor, make sure you sign our visitor form. And Michelle, I hear that you have an open testimony for us, or sorry, excuse me. We're going to go to testimonies in just a minute. So Megan, are you ready for your safety moment?
Yes. So I shared with Kitty, I don't know if she can share it. I picked school bus safety because it's that time of year. And I think on the first day, my husband said he saw two people go through the little arm out stop signs and got pulled over on Highway 101. It is a bigger highway. There's no divider in the middle. And I learned while researching. Yeah.
Can you hold on for just a second? Kitty's trying to pull it out. Open the document, and it does this for 9102.
If you send it to me, I could put it up.
Megan, can you give us just a minute? I'm going to share the document with Josh.
Yeah, no problem.
Sorry, guys. Yesterday.
Is the sound okay on your end, everyone that's virtual?
Yes.
Sounds good to me.
Awesome.
Sorry, Megan, can you just talk through it?
Yeah,
don't know
no,
why.
totally. It was just, I just did a little, I made a little poster of what I found when I started researching it. I went to the National Highway Traffic and Safety Administration website. Each
You keep freezing. Oh, we're having technical difficulties here.
Okay,
I'm so sorry. Okay, go ahead.
okay. So all 50 states make it illegal to pass the school bus when the red stop arm and the flashing lights are on. It requires traffic to stop in both directions, even on the undivided to stop in both directions on undivided highways. And then there's highways. And then just some parent safety to go over with kids when they're getting on, waiting for the school bus to come to a complete stop and being aware of their surroundings too. And then I all this up that it is 70 times of traveling in a car, which I thought was interesting. And then future improvements and stuff for school buses, they're looking at different cross arms, green technology that's constantly evolving, Wi-Fi videos, inspections, tracking technologies, I guess, are all ongoing. And just kind of be aware of your surroundings with the school buses and the children out. I don't know if when I started, the reason I picked this is my husband called me on the first day of school here in town, and on Highway 101, there was 2 people that went through and got pulled over. So that's kind of why I chose this subject. And it's an important one with the kids running around. I'm not sure who has school age kids, but it's good to remind them too that is, even though that's the law, to just still kind of be aware what's going on around you.
Thank you, Megan. It is very important, when you have little kids running around, they're not watching out for traffic at all. And it's also very important for us to give not even ourselves, but the employees extra time in the mornings and when school is out, just to be a little bit more vigilant. So much appreciated, Megan. Thank you. So we're having a few technical difficulties. It's cutting in and out on our speaker, but it's not cutting in and out on the Zoom call. So if you're having issues on the Zoom call, let us know. Raise your hand. Kitty is monitoring the chat, so we'll know right away. Just to let you know, Megan cut in and out quite a few times, but she was fine with the computer Zoom call. So next on board, minutes from August. So we'll take a few minutes to review them. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking at my screen. On the front page, do we need to remove Ryan now that
Andy's initial.
Thank you, Katie, for sending a PDF copy of that. That was really helpful.
I would have to say how she's doing, sending out the reports. I like that. There are two links. That works really well.
Motion to approve.
Second. Do I hear any discussion? Okay. All in favor, please say meow.
Now.
Yeah. Sorry, I just had to do that for Micah.
Your work.
All opposed, state the same. Hearing none, motion passes.
I didn't hear you.
Minutes approved.
I thought you were gonna say all opposed part.
Okay, so there's a joke to that. He likes cats. And cat videos.
Got video.
Cat videos. Cat
Oh,
videos.
cat video.
Who does?
Mhm. I would never admit that.
They wondered why it's scammed so bad.
So would you do minutes?
No, I missed that.
Oh,
Vote recorded though.
Okay, all right.
Oh.
Michelle? Are you ready for your open testimony?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay,
So
do you
go
want me to
ahead
go on video? How do you, I don't know how to use Zoom, sorry. Oh, there, got it. Never mind.
Sorry,
Okay.
we see you.
Yeah, how's my hair? So yesterday we had our meeting and I was explaining a situation that we recently had here in Klamath Falls. Last Thursday, we had, luckily the city of Klamath Falls noticed some core drilling going on right next to our high pressure line. Got a hold of us, we ran out there, we shut them down. They hadn't called in any locates. Then on Friday, even though they called in the locates on Thursday, on Friday, they were out there drilling again. We stopped them yet again. And I called in OSHA at that point, Medford OSHA, and they responded immediately and got a hold of, I gave them phone numbers and ticket numbers, and they got a hold of them, got them stopped, and we got them off the premises even. Pacific Power is doing a huge project down here, and that's who the core drilling is for. And so, but they stopped it. Then I had my journeyman gas go out there this week, and he walked the entire footprint of the project with them. And now we've got a good rapport and life is good. And the reason I'm bringing this up is that when we at our KUCC meetings, I've been highly encouraging everyone to be using the OPUC app. And unfortunately, that app is just, when we were trained, we were given the app and gone over each page, which I can appreciate all the detail that they're wanting, but the fact that it is so intense and so long, and then once it's processed, which one I just did recently was over, I don't know even how long ago it was, but I did get a call and was told that the information wasn't as they needed, so it was going to be deleted, and I was welcome to start it all over again. Well, we're all dealing in this new world of ours with a lot of responsibilities, and we got to decide what it is burning at the top of that list. And so do you want me to go out and be looking for contractors, talking to them? As a KUCC president, I'm getting calls all the time. I'm running out trying to, put a lot of the stuff to bed. We're getting so many new contractors in our area because our area is just busting at the seams, and they're coming from all over saying, we don't do things like everybody else. And it's like 811 is across the United States. We all do it the same. And anyway, but do we want an app that allows us to get something done, get the pictures, get the general information so that we can get a response just like we did with OSHA? I mean, OSHA responded immediately. And it gave me that sense of I was heard. They knew that they needed to stop work. And they also knew that we meant business. With the current app that we're trying to use and we don't hear back, and then they get dropped because the information isn't as they wanted, it's not going anywhere. And we're losing, I mean, OPUC spent a great deal of time, effort, and money putting this app together, but I think we all need to step back and punt to look at, is it really meeting the needs? Is it going to be something that we can use, that they can turn around and make that phone call to that contractor, get somebody's attention without waiting multiple weeks? It's like, get in trouble from your mom on Monday and wait till your dad gets home on Friday. You forgot what you did on Monday. It's the same thing. They're not going to be paying attention. And until we start getting things more timely and we have repercussions for these actions, and especially the one for mine, I know of 4 times this same contractor has hit us, but I brought that to the forum, but I needed to speak only to the fact that it was that incident only. I wasn't allowed to bring those others back, which I get. We're only talking about that one incident and only the facts for that one incident. But it's frustrating for those of us out here trying to enforce it. I'm trying to work with all the utilities here in Klamath County, and I can't encourage them to use the app when it's not working the way that we need it to be, more timely and more instantaneous. Otherwise, the contractors are going to just keep on doing exactly what they're doing. And we, as employees, have an obligation to give back to our company what they're paying us for to do our jobs. And so I'm trying to fit pretty much 2 jobs into one time, like we all are, more with less. And I want to do a good job, but I got to be given the tools to do that. And right now, I don't feel like I have it.
Can you tell me more about the OPUC app? Is anyone else using that? I don't know.
Is Kevin here? Is Kevin there by any chance?
He is online, yes.
Okay, so Kevin is one of the creators along with Cody was the one that came down and helped us. But basically it's, date, time, place, what was, ticket number, was there not a ticket number, but if there's no locates, there's no way to go take a picture of no locates, right? And so if you submit it without a picture of not taking pictures with a locate mark, and it gets kicked out because you didn't take pictures, there's nothing to take pictures of. We need a little bit of common sense in it too. And then you can take pictures, attach it. You're supposed to put the contractor, pretty much the ticket number. But again, it's all factual is what I understand now. There was not a handbook, if you will, or even a guide that says when you fill out this, this, and this, and it's not a drop down user friendly, which we find in our company that the more you use drop downs and you minimize, it has to be, 1 of 5 answers, because it just helps the selection and the information be more streamlined so that it fits into a trending scenario. But it's approximately, when you're looking on your phone, it's about, I'd say 6 to 10 pages that you have to fill out.
Yeah.
OSHA also has one that they have online, which is about 1 page that you can fill out. It's not an app, but at least it's something that you can do really quick and get to them. And then they're responding like the same day or the next day. And Kevin can speak on it. It's his app, not mine.
Right. Kevin?
I'll respond to a specific question about the complaint form. So far, I haven't heard any. Michelle, I am going to send Cody down again to go over the options of how to address a complaint. To be specific on what was kicked back or deleted on yours, we specifically asked for verification of excavation activities. That was not provided in the complaint. We just got a contractor, a date, but nothing in the complaint that verified excavation activities actually taking place with that specific contractor. So I think it would be best at this point to send our inspectors down and meet with you to go over the application or the form. It can be done on a phone, which would spell out multiple page views, but can also be done on your desktop. And so that would reduce the amount of views that you are seeing and information that we're asking for. And as always, if you have any questions about it, there's a numbers there to call us directly. We want to get the best information in order to sort out the issues. I'm super happy that you were able to contact OSHA. There are other operators that in the state of Oregon that are doing just that to get an immediate response when worker life, safety, health issues are concerned. PUC established that relationship, got that going in 2015. Other operators have reached out to OSHA directly when those things do occur. So we're happy to hear that. But if there is not any specific question related to this, I'll just take the questions as they come.
So Kevin, I still think, I don't know that it's going to be for Cody. I think there needs to be some type of a printed something that tells you what your expectations are of each of those sections is gonna be, to me, the key element. It's
Okay.
not Cody
Well,
coming down.
I'll take that. I'll
Okay.
take that line outside the board meeting because it's not board business.
It's right. It's easier to share is all I'm saying. So anyway, that's all
Thanks,
I've
Michelle.
got to say. Thank you, Kevin.
All right, thank you, Michelle.
Thanks.
Scott. You're up.
Alrighty, so for the month of August 2022. We had 32,816 incoming tickets. That's up 3.05% from August of 2021. And that's up 0.04% year to date. So pretty flat there still. I think last month we were down 0.40. So still kind of maintaining that, which again, I'll say on a year to date basis is pretty good considering we had some pretty huge numbers last year. Outgoing ticket volume was 180,327, which is up 0.37% from August of last year, but still down year to date on total outgoing 3.68%. In that ratio is currently 5.5%. Last year it was 5.64 this time. And then your iTick numbers are 23,210, which is 70.61% of total locates. So you're still riding up above that 70% line, which is good. Any questions on the numbers real quick? Okay, we still have a few projects that are out that are getting moved regarding the improved readability of NXT tickets. That's just continuing to move forward. It's not implemented quite yet, but I know that there is some work going. Adam, do you have an update on that? Did I hear that you might?
The market instructions changes are expected in the next couple of weeks here. We're trying to figure out if we can separate it from the build that it was put in so that we can expedite release. I'll have a forecast on when we can deploy it very soon. The work is complete. It's just a matter of installing it at this point.
And then we had a request to, we had a default selection. The parcel tool was chosen to, which also had created some behavioral challenges, and that it would save our entire property, and then it would create the sometimes the excavator would come back and say mark just the back corner of it, which created actually we were able to do a hot fix on that and get that fixed and implemented. So that was taken care of yesterday or Tuesday, or yesterday or this week. It was taken care of this week, but I think Monday night actually. It's done. And then same thing, homeowner verbiage, which is a request that's going to be in a further phase to add a link to connect to a website that a website landing page with some extra information for homeowners, and then request for expanded ticket reporting is also advanced and should be in our next release. As far as the past due late report, I met with Josh and Frank. We met together, we went through the 28-page list, submitted that to our finance folks and got that down to 9 pages currently. There's still a couple pretty high dollar ones there. I think we looked at PG's still 58,000 or pretty high. So we'll have to do some direct outreach to them. There's still, so we took care of all the low hanging fruit. We still have a few others to do some investigation. Got 28 down to 9, so that's better.
Well, I do know at Pacific, we're having issues with our AP department. Obviously, we don't have enough employees to cover and process those invoices. So ours, I know, are falling behind. PG might be in the same boat as well. Also, we have extended our contracts out to a 90-day pay invoice instead of a 60-day. So that's something to look at as well.
Okay.
Yeah, it's 3 months, the past 3 months.
Mhm. You won't get paid for this.
But you're getting there. You will. But we will.
Yes.
And that's what I have. Any questions for us?
So I do have, I'm looking at the notes from last month. And you specified the new rates on the different tickets. So you have all called in tickets, updates made by user, text only entered by user, and text with mapping entered by user. Those are all different price points. I am wondering, and you probably already give this to us, but do you have it broken down in our billing summary and how many those are?
Yeah, so if you look at your board reports,
Okay.
and you go to bill summary. Are you pulling up?
Yeah, she's pulling it up. Thank you. You said.
So that page you have there.
Okay, in the tab where it says bill summary.
Yeah, right where you're at.
Okay.
It's all highlighted, Kitty. If you can just click anywhere in there, it'll stay white. So the 4 that are spaced out, the boxes, so if you look on the left, the top one is your total outbound tickets, and then your next 4 that are below that are your number of tickets per each one of those costs. So and actually, if you click on one of those cells, you can see what the math is. So the next one down, Kitty, to the right, up.
I'm sorry.
Any of those actually on those.
Just click here.
No, to the right one. There you go. So you'll see that the math is times 5.97. So that's your base rate. So that's your tickets that are called in when we do all the maps and do all the work. So then your next one is your first discount. So that's at 531. The next one down is at 499. And then your biggest discount is at 4.447, which is where the bulk of your tickets are. So you're doing a great job.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Yeah, that's what I have for the center report.
If we want to pull it up at this point, I could pull up the information on the write-offs. You want to see it on the screen?
Sure, we can go over the write-offs. Good.
Since you brought it up.
Mhm.
So I would share it. I think everyone has received the brief on this as well. And if you didn't, let me know, because I want to make sure those are getting to you. everyone see that all right remotely? So just recapping, the bulk of the write-offs were from PG, as Scott mentioned, 39,000 out of 45,000. We are writing off 46 of the 83 amounts. Most of them were small dollar amounts. Like the average amount was 90 cents. Some of them were 2 cents, 3 cents. And in most cases, the cost of recovery of those amounts would be more than the actual amount we collect. And a lot of them also accrued because of past finance charges, which Scott and Frank said that in other states, the finance charges have not suited the intended purpose very well of getting people to pay. It's created more problems than solutions. And so that may be something we want to discuss in the future, is whether or not to revisit the finance charge end of things. But the interest on those had accrued, may have started at 6 cents and then it made its way up to 27 cents. And so those were the type of things we just dispatched with, so we don't waste our time on it. And then there's 6 of 83 just based on our own policy that we created, that we're asking for executive committee to write off. And along with this, since I think the threshold that we set was $5, to avoid this type of thing, I think we could increase that to maybe even $25, and it would save us from having to go through this process for small dollar amounts. Again, a lot of these were through small finance charges that had accrued, and random anomalies. So then the 16 of the 83 totaling 44,000 of the 45,000 are being pursued by One Call Concepts. And then 2 of them we've discussed. I think, Nate, you probably remember it. They said it went back almost like 5 to 10 years. Pine Ridge Pump and Redland Road Water District are MIA. They're not paying. They haven't paid. I think one of them goes back to 2015. And so we're trying to figure out a path forward on that. And Kitty went and poured over the minutes to try and find past discussions on that, because it predated me. I don't know what was decided in the past on those 2, but we may have to start from square one, because it's a fair amount, $736, but we don't have a contact. We haven't, OCC's tried to reach them. I've tried to research them. Yeah.
They're not a referral to collections relationship in existence with One Call Concepts. Not specific to our rules, but One Call Concepts. So when you get to a specific threshold of time, do you have a referral to an outside collections agency?
No, we usually try to collect.
Okay. We implemented something like that. Do you have, I'm sorry. If we had a policy like that in place, do you have the capacity to take on sourcing that contract?
That might be a question for Adam.
I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing you. I think the question was, do we have a collections process? Was that what you were asking?
An outside collections agency referral process. So
Yes.
within a certain aged invoice time, it would automatically be referred to an outside collections agency.
We do have an outside agency that we've worked with in the past. We did not have a lot of success with it. They didn't really make any more progress than we did. And actually, interestingly enough, Pine Ridge Pump was one of the entities that we were dealing with back when we engaged the outside consultant. And ultimately, we've pulled these back in-house and we pursue these ourselves because we really hadn't seen any impact there.
Okay,
we're open to doing it on your behalf, absolutely.
So this would not be something, this would be considered a write-off for One Call Concepts. And, at least from Ziply's perspective and other utilities that I know of that do this, that collection agency purchases that account balance to go after at a specific rate. So maybe it's 10 cents on the dollar or 5 cents on the dollar. But at that point, it becomes a write-off. It comes off of our books. It comes off of your books. And, if there's a recovery, that collection agency keeps that bounty. That's the type of relationship I'm asking about.
Oh, yes. No, we engaged them in an arrangement where if they collected it, they kept a fee out of the collection. And then basically the collection was up to them to continue to pursue. We've never sold the debt in the way that you've described. I think Frank may have some knowledge of past history where that was done. I'm not sure if he can shed any light on that.
Yes, the board at one point actually solicited a collection agency of their own, because these funds, these ticket, the $736 is actually
Frank, can you, we lost you.
okay.
You guys hear me?
So the board at one time solicited an collection agency for us to work with, as Adam said, and the arrangement was to send them the information and they would collect it and they would collect a fee of it. And it's as you said, they collected, if they collected it, it was a percentage of whatever that fee was. These amounts are so small for them that they don't put a lot of work into them. So if it isn't a slam dunk for them in their eye, they're not going to spend time on it. They spend time on collections of larger accounts because that's where they're going to make their money. So Pine Ridge and Rutland and the board actually made a deal with them that if they paid their bills, they wouldn't turn them off. And at some point, Pine Ridge, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
At some point, Pine Ridge did pay their bill and get it caught up, and then they stopped again. So, they've just been a problem child. I think it's a small entity. I don't think it's very large. They just happen to be in an area that they do receive enough tickets that they do get billed over the 50 tickets a year.
Are we still billing them by any chance? Or do they have an account with us? Okay. Are
We're
you
still, as far as I know, we're still sending them tickets and we're still billing them, yes.
Yes, yes, and yes.
Because the rule says they have to pay. Oh, sorry. Would this not be considered an enforcement action that would require PUC involvement? Because the rule says that we're to establish a center that charges by ticket for calls. So if there's a utility operator that's not adhering to the rules, I would think the board could refer this to the PUC for enforcement action.
At one point in time, boards in the past have discussed that, but they've never pulled that trigger.
So would that be considered a PUC complaint? Well, we'll have to figure out how that works exactly, but since the PUC is responsible in the rules for enforcement of our rules, I would think the board could submit a complaint for investigation and enforcement.
What do you think, Kevin?
I'm thinking this seems to be more of an operations issue with the function of the board operating a one call center and its business matters. I'd have to take a look at the scope of rules, specifically OARs that are enforceable, but really we've never, and Frank is correct, we've never gone down the road of being the collection agency enforcer. That's more of a business related issue. So I would recommend looking at other business options to collect payments. That's my first hunch.
I think if you look at the statute and the OARs, it requires facility operators to become members of the utility notification center, but it doesn't say anything about requiring them to pay. So they are members, so they're not violating that law. They're getting tickets, and I guess they're locating them. They're just not paying for them. So it may be outside. It may be outside of what, as Kevin said, outside. Okay, can you hear me okay now?
We can now.
Okay, so the OARs and the statutes require facility operators to become members of the Oregon Utility Notification Center. It doesn't say anything about that they have to pay for it, as part of an OAR. So these members are receiving tickets, are, I assume, locating tickets and fulfilling that. They're just not paying for the service. So I think the board always felt that it was a situation where, they're doing what they're supposed to say that the PUC could enforce them against, take action to enforce against them. They're just not paying, and that is an operational type situation, as Kevin said. So I don't know if it's worth filing a complaint against them through the PUC. You could file against somebody that is knowingly not being a member of the center. You could cut these people off, but that's a risk there that, a facility could get damaged. So I don't know if it's a PUC actionable item, to be honest with you.
And I agree with Frank. It seems it is more operational. It seems like it's more of a small claims court issue related, other than instead of the PUC, looking at the do's and don'ts of excavation and the OARs that are designed to protect underground facilities. So it's likely that the reason why we haven't done this in the past is our agency isn't the enforcement action to be the collection agency arm for the OUNC. So my recommendation is looking at other methods to collect, including but not limited to small claims.
Thank you, Kevin.
So this is Jamie. I understand your comment, Kevin, about not being the collection agency. I do want to point out that there is a section in the DIG law manual about shall pay. So if you look at page 12, 757.552, section 2B, if you read there, it does say subscribers shall pay to fund all of the activities of for the utility notification center. So it is stated as part of the rules.
Nate's up.
Melanie.
And then Kyle, hold on.
Okay, go ahead, Nate.
We did have, the last time I remember the board having this discussion was in November of 2016 at Canby. So those would be the notes, if you want to check about the direction the board went on that. But if I recall right, it should be a DOJ request, because I don't know if we're allowed statutorily to write off. I think because they owe the state money, I don't think the state allows us to just write off debt. But part of the collection agency we can get whatever fee the collection agency charges. So we would be able to get the full amount plus the fee the collection agency charges on that. But I don't think it's a OCC issue. I think it's a board issue. So I think OCC should turn over those collections, and then it would be the board who goes out and acquires them. We may want to check with DOJ first of all if we can even write off debt, because I don't think we can.
Yeah.
I thought that's what I remember from that conversation.
We can under certain circumstances, but I think we could also call in the Oregon Department of Revenue.
Yeah.
And we just haven't done that before, so it's kind of uncharted territory. So I could look into that and then report back next month.
Great. Kyle?
Yeah, I want to echo the same that Nate just said, is that we do have an obligation, since we are a quasi-state agency, that we have to follow those guidelines. And also collections, how is this stated within the contract that we have with OCC? Because if we haven't given the permission to do that collection, then that kind of falls on top of our shoulders. So I think that is in there, and that would be my question. What are the parameters within the contract that we have set up with OCC to do that type of collection? If they're unsuccessful, I agree that this then goes to Department of Revenue and DOJ for guidance on that. Jessica, to your point, we cannot, I don't believe we can sell that debt to them because it is funding a state agency. So there's some nuances there that are not similar to the private sector there. So I think there are also some things with the consumer, Department of Consumer Affairs or consumer, whatever that department is, Josh, that we might ask them as well. Because if they're not following the requirements of operations, of operating and adhering to the OARs, that can be enforceable in some other different manners, I think. So those are just my comments. So thanks all.
Kyle?
And just to add to that, I just sent you a link to Swarm Statewide Accounting, whatever it's called. And we have to, Melanie and Don probably know this, but we're supposed to file a yearly form, a Swarm report that says how much we wrote off. You might find the information you're looking for in that at that website. Right off the bat, looking really quickly, I didn't see it, but it may be addressed in there in the accounting manual.
I filed that last year and we're due to do it. I think if we do it by the end of this week, we're on the honor roll, but we still have plenty of time after that too, if we need to. But that was one of the benefits of cleaning out and doing the housekeeping on those tricky ones. Well, that's helpful. I think it gives me a path forward at least to look into that. And to end on a positive note, a good number of them are carrying a positive balance. So there's 13 of the accounts on that list, and probably still some of those 9 pages are have about $500 in a credit. So they're showing up there because it's a positive, but they're still showing up as delinquent, even though it's carrying a credit. So.
Right. And so like I was saying too, Pacific Power went to 90 days paid invoices. So that might be something that's happening with other utilities as well. So we might have to look at our threshold on past dues.
I don't see certain power on this.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Are we done?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Good conversation. All right. Going to the treasury report. Sadie, can you pull that up? Can you do, yes, the Google Sheet. So just a side note here, how is everyone, we've already discussed it a little bit, but in the meeting notice, Kitty actually put the link of the Google Sheets, and then also our agenda with the notes attached. Do we like that? And does everyone have access to the Google Sheets? Did anyone look at them? Yep. Okay. So for me, I think it's a great thing, and I think we should keep it that way if everyone has access. And yeah. Okay. Perfect. Is it really bad that I can't see that?
No.
Okay. All right. So for July, I'm just going to go high level here. For July, revenue came in at 194. Our expenses were 201, and the expenses include pretty much our general, our publicity. Let's go back a little bit more. Is that better for everyone? Okay, so your expenses are your general expenses, publicity, your training and education. Our payroll, and that's pretty much it. So we spent as of July, our total deficit was 156. As a budget that we actually approved for 2022, we will have a net gain of like 3,700. Okay, so essentially we're clocking in about right. This was the first month of the tariff increase. So we will start seeing a little bit more, hopefully, in revenue coming in as well. However, the audit we have not paid for. Okay, that's about, we agreed to spend $25,000 on that. Okay, so we might have to cut in certain areas. We'll let you know. You can scroll through this sheet and you can see exactly where we're spending our money, what it was spent on. If you want more details, you can reach out to Kitty, Josh, or I, and we, well, Kitty's the best one really. And she can give you more details if you want. So do we have any questions on that?
It's the link so people view it on their own screen since it was small print.
Do we have any questions? Are we good? Do I hear a motion?
I make a motion to accept the treasurer's report statement.
Second. Any further discussion? No?
Melanie, this is, sorry, I just want to jump in here.
Go ahead.
I think this is a great change as we progress to add things to the budget sheets here. It gives us a much better picture. So I think this is leaps ahead of where we were at the beginning of the year. And I think we're, as we all, or as we have discussed over the past few months, things are starting to tighten back up towards the end of the year. Things are balancing out a little bit. I think the audit is going to provide us the next piece of the story here as we are really refining our financial picture for the board, which we really haven't done over the past few years. So thanks for all the work on this, team finance.
You are welcome. I think it's, I would have to agree with you, Kyle. I think I feel so much better about it. And I feel a little bit more in control, even though I'm, within the daily happenings of it. I think that someone else feels secure in it as well. So, Oh, do you have something?
Yeah, just a request. I appreciate the percentages added, but on the percentage of budget remaining, can we change that to percentage of budget spent? And then it'll match the percentage of the year elapsed.
Sure.
So if we do that, because right now you're doing reverse math on it. So
Okay.
both of them will match up and then we'll be able to see where we're at of spend to year.
Gotcha.
So that makes sense. Instead of percent of budget remaining, percent of budget spent.
Yep.
All right, so we're in the middle of a motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, say aye. Hearing none, motion passes. Beautiful. Okay, so we have our officers' reports. Obviously, Micah is not here. I do not have anything for vice chair or treasurer. Paul?
No,
Nothing? Kevin? Kevin, do you have anything for us?
Sorry, I didn't realize I was muted. Yes, I do have an update. I've been working with our IT department on the board's request to get more information about the types of complaints that we're receiving and its process and where they're at in their life cycle. We've made some changes to our inputs, and we're now looking at creating some reports that would be able to share that information in a presentable format. So still moving forward on that.
Okay, so do you have an ETA by any chance?
An ETA?
Yeah. When we're gonna see
I'm
this?
sorry, you broke up. The ETA, no, not yet. We still got to define with IT the parameters of what we're going to do, how it's going to look. So we're researching that right now.
Okay.
And depending on how that gets presented, it'll give us a better opportunity to report out an ETA based on what's already in the queue for additional projects with IT.
Okay. So I guess I wondered to myself, why you have to go through IT? Is it because it's all automated right now and they're just pulling it from a database? Is that, I don't understand that part. Can you help me?
Well, I mean, just part of our business practices, we keep track of work items and we use a database to track things. We are not in a position to hire someone dedicated to manually pull out information that gets put into the database. So we're utilizing the technology that we have, and we're not going to make it a manual process for any staff member. So that's why we're doing it that way.
Okay, so you're automating it. So we can get, as soon as this is automated, we can get a monthly report. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, we haven't decided the reporting parameters yet, but yeah, we're looking into it.
Okay. Okay.
It might be more appropriate to do like a quarterly report, depending on what how the data presents itself into a more meaningful format. So we're looking into what other states are doing, what is commonly used in reporting out. So we want it to be useful for all the stakeholders, and so we're collecting different ways of doing that and see if we can't home grow our own product.
Okay. So going back to Michelle's comment, about live, understanding who are the biggest hitters out there. Is there any way that we could have a monthly report understanding, who are our biggest hitters? Who is being called in the most? I mean, that, to me, that gives me more, more tooth in the game when I'm out there and I'm talking to these contractors.
Right. Well, just to add to that thought, receiving complaints on a particular repeat offender doesn't necessarily mean that that's your most, your biggest baddest actor, I guess, is a poor way of stating it. So, if you are collecting dirt information as a company, as an organization, and representing a stakeholdership, that would give you probably some more intelligible information about the bad actors for damage prevention. So complaints are one way of looking at it, but I don't think it would represent something that is actionable for the worst of the worst, because as we find out during our investigations, there's this underworld of trading bad acts for bad acts. So utilities might be missing marks, excavators might be bending the rules a little bit, and so I think if I was to be making decisions based on complaints, I would be wanting to look at a more holistic view of data.
Right. Oh, I completely understand that. It's like when you're in court, you can't, you're not guilty until you're proven guilty, right? Same
Well,
thing.
yeah, and I don't know if Michelle's still on, but the example that she brought, we just had some real concerns on being able to properly identify the actual entity that did the excavation. I'm thrilled that she was able to use another means to create the expectation, and that is our partners with Oregon OSHA. Anyone can file a complaint either with the PUC on Chapter 952 rules or complaint with Oregon OSHA. And there are certain things that we need in order to do an investigation, just like OSHA. And OSHA has a different process than we do. They have, they just have a little bit different process. So.
Anyone else? I actually want to bring up something about the city business if I could. Great. Hey, thank you, Kevin. All right, our staff.
That's us.
Hi, appreciate you guys so much.
Likewise. And I share screens. Okay, so first is the great news that Andy and Kevin and was it Lee? I think you were already official, or were you in the last batch? I'm trying to remember it. It all got scrambled,
Yeah.
but welcome to all voting members now. Finally,
Congratulations.
well, so that leaves us with telecommunications cooperatives, which was John Eckes' seat. If anyone has any leads on that, we've been striking out so far, and then the perennial favorite railroads. Kitty and I have also discussed, and it'll be something we throw in the strategic plan for possibility is landscape contractors, because they've been kind of left out of some of these discussions and they've been showing up in the damage reports. And so it may be something to consider for the future. Since we got rid of the national telecommunications seat, it wouldn't be it would be a net even as far as our membership goes. Write-offs we already discussed. We're going to use that for swarm reporting with the state. That's our annual requirement that Johnny mentioned. Promoting 811 Day. I just have a quick slide here, and actually I'll cover this in publicity, so I want to keep us on track here. But we got paid in earned media, social. We were out at the Hillsborough Hops, did a live interview there, and it was part of a national approach too. There were a lot of national events, including minor Major League Baseball, micro, a lot of other efforts that you probably saw in headlines. Excavator trainings have been taking up the bulk of my time and will be taking up most of next week as well. I've got, I think it's the last 7 of 16 classes reaching 300 plus attendees with PGE. It's been good interaction with the folks lately, good questions. One of the themes that's popped up repeatedly has been the need for mandatory positive response. They think it would help them out a lot with removing the uncertainty when they get out there on site, whether or not it's been marked, whether or not it was clear. You know, sometimes they'll mark it clear, sometimes they don't. And so it's this guessing game. And in their case, they have deeper pockets and equipment to be able to use back trucks all the time, but they say they're using back trucks in a lot of cases where it's probably not necessary, but it's just a CYA or to, you know, be careful. And so I think they gave 5 or 6 different suggestions for ways we could improve that. And so I'll be bringing that. Part of it is with OCC, part of it is with us. But I think some good actionable things we can do to improve the system. Joint States Conference, kudos to Katie for all the work she put into that, and Scott for great OUCC conference. We did a presentation with Royal on digital marketing, and we also have a contingent going to users group in 2 weeks. It'll be Nate, Lee, and Dale will be our board members representing us in Washington, DC for users group. And we'll report back on findings, because as we found in Palm Springs last year, a lot of the ideas we heard there we brought back and implemented here. DIRT report, the OUCC had asked me to go through and do some analysis based on zones. So we've done by county, and we did find some interesting things in that, and it's still a work in progress because I took this over from Lindsay Demko, and I'm still wading my way through the data and figuring out how we can deal with this better in the future. But we already had this one, which doesn't really have any major revelations because it just shows basically where the population is. More population, more chance of damage. But then when you take that out and use damage ratios, this is with inbound tickets. You can see the dark spots are where the problems are compared to if you take the population out of the equation. So that's where we're at with that. In Southern Oregon, not surprisingly, let's see, that's more small. So these were the top based on either inbound, outbound tickets or based on population. Union topped the list, Hood River was high, Clatsop in all 3 categories as well. But then if you take that out and go to zones, zone 3 is the clear winner, which is Southern Oregon. So I think leading into next year, and as we get more data for 2022, see if that trend continues, and that is pointing a real strong finger at putting more efforts into that area in Southern Oregon.
Well, aren't they, well, as Michelle was saying, they're booming down there too.
Yep.
And they're bringing lots of contractors in that don't normally work.
Yeah, she said Northern California contractors. So they're maybe playing by different rules, or it might be some training and education opportunities, but also just back to enforcement as well. So, home stretch here. Design review system is something we've been covering in committee for OAR, and one of the questions that was raised 2 meetings ago was whether or not it was in our purview to implement a system similar to what Washington has done, which is design information review and design locate review, so that in the planning stages of a project, when they don't need paint on the ground, they just need the information that we or the call center can help facilitate that. Their finding was essentially that no, based on what we proposed, that we don't have that ability. But we're looking at creative ways to be able to make that happen in the future. So we may be able to find ways within our existing administrative rules to help facilitate that. We just have to get creative. Strategic plan and budget will be meeting on Monday to discuss budget priorities and bring back proposals to the next meeting. We would then implement any suggestions or changes to that for the November meeting and approve it in either November or December for the 2023 calendar and fiscal year, which is the same. Financial audit, we're meeting tomorrow to discuss financial controls, internal, and then we've provided them a mountain of materials. I think they have probably 99% of everything they could possibly need and then some. So we should be good to go there. And then we'll have them come in and report to the board when that's complete. And then lastly, the 2023 legislative plan I presented in the OAR committee. And I think I shared this with the board. So you should have received this on email, but if not, I can get it back out to you again. We went through line by line. So one of the issues with service tariff exemptions, when we went through the increase, one of the problems that we found is that there's still in statute several categories of customers that don't have to pay. They either reach a threshold and don't have to pay for the rest of the year, or they're exempt. So that was one of the things we discussed possibly pursuing at the legislative, because it would have to be a change in statute to make that happen. The committee suggested bringing that to the full board. I don't know how realistic it is to be able to make that change in the 2023 session. At this stage, the deadline to request measures from Legislative Council is this month. So that's one of the red flag issues. If we feel strongly enough, I think Scott, when he was running numbers on that, estimated in a perfect world scenario, it was somewhere around $100,000, if I remember right, in exemptions. So that was one of them. Underground facility definition, we're going to change in rules, so no legislative action there. Mandatory positive response, we're going to do proactive outreach on that and see if we can influence change that way. But as I mentioned with PGE, there's strong interest in trying to get more certainty about when locates are complete, and that does not participate is causing some confusion. Mandatory white lining and electronic white lining, that one is, I have a note that we're going to keep that in committee. Design review system, I just mentioned. Reference to the 1995 standards manual. So Kitty has done some great research on trying to find some historic documents for us, but our statute says that our rules must be consistent with the Oregon Utilities Coordinating Council Standards Manual of 1995, which made sense when we were created because that's what the rules were. But now, 27 years later, does it make sense today to be referring back to that, saying that all of our rules have to comply with the 1995 document? So that's one of the things that we may need to revisit as well.
So you're telling me that this hasn't been revised since 1995?
No, that's the problem. We have revised it many times.
Oh.
And so we're still bound by a document that's been revised probably 8 times.
Part of the front page.
I'm sorry?
No, this one. This one.
Right, this is our standards manual. Yeah. This has been updated 4 times.
No,
She-
this is
she
the Oregon
found-
Utilities Coordinating Council.
Oh.
So this is different, not that.
Yeah, so but you're right, though. It's the same. So, but then the ones that they changed predated ours. And so I would estimate 8. Kitty found 94, 97, 2000, 2003.
Right, so thank you, Frank.
Yeah.
I would have thrown them out.
Well, I'm gonna get them printed and scanned.
But that came up when DOJ was reviewing our design review system question, because they're still using that as the standard, going back and saying, well, you have to comply with this old manual, which Archives doesn't even have a copy of. So it's problematic. Paint marking remediation, that came up in the 2021 session. I don't anticipate seeing that coming back, but it's one thing that we'll monitor for. And then the rest of these were just kind of future questions. No action needed on any of those based on what we discussed. And I think that's it. So I'll open it up for questions. Nate?
Should we add removing railroads potentially from board seat?
When I started, I asked that question, and I don't remember if it was Mike there or someone said that it was a conscious decision to leave that seat on the board in case there were ever any future issues with the railroads, to say you had an opportunity, you had an open seat for you to have a voice and a hand in this organization since we were created. But yeah, I think that's a fair question for the board if it's going to, because I think it's sat vacant since 2007, if I remember right, maybe 2008.
I spent some considerable time with ODOT Railroad and their associate people trying to get other different, like Pacific Western Railroad and others, right? And with no, luck. I think it's a loss. Maybe I shouldn't word like that. I think it's a lost cause, and I don't see why we consider getting rid of it. And then if they decide somebody wants to join, add them like you're discussing with landscape.
Why can't we so we can just leave it on there and then add? Just so we cover ourselves.
Might want to keep it because if we end up getting into mandatory reporting, then they might care.
Kim, do the other states you represent, is railroads part of other boards and do they participate?
Minnesota specifically doesn't have a seat on board as a railroad. There are some railroads that are members, but not necessarily a seat on board. I'm trying to think of other states.
I don't know of any that have railroad as a voting board member.
I think so.
Any other questions? I had one other thing to mention that Lee brought up. So if not, Lee had suggested after the MICA scenario, whether or not we should consider taking all of your contact information off of our website. So just be your name, represent what organizations you represent in your picture. And then if they want to reach you, they can either do it through a contact form or through us, the staff. If you support that, we can ask for that change and get that made so that you're not getting bots pulling your emails, filling up your inbox with spam and phishing.
So
I'm good with that.
we used to have, I'm not bad with it, but I mean, but we used to have, I know that we had, for example, treasury at such and such. Do we want to go there? Do we want to have Johnny Sapp at OUNC or something like that?
We have that currently. Everyone has their own emails. When you become a board member, well, I guess, Kitty, you can talk on it. Yes, so.
And
do
I'm
the
sorry,
onboarding, you
maybe a
have your
second
own
part, would that
things.
even fix it? I don't think it would, but.
Do you check that email, John?
I'll never check that email. I think I'm the only one who uses board members have used it, so.
Yeah, that's what.
I think a roundabout email would be the best thing, because you have yours, but maybe just a general email, like
We could use info@digsafely Oregon.
Right.
Board members.
something like that.
And then then are you considering removing our phone information too?
Yes.
I was
Yeah.
more concerned about the phone necessarily than email, because if they Google any one of us, they can more than likely probably
I've
get our
gotten-
contact email.
I just want to make one less entry point for that information, frankly. I mean, using other boards and commissions, like OPUC commissioners do not have direct contact information anywhere on their website. And it's not about creating distance between the public and them. There's a forum, this meeting, for the public to come and present their correspondence to us. So, I would make a motion to remove the contact information for all board members from our website.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Hearing none? Oh, so. All approve, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Same.
I think Kyle
Kyle, do you have your hand up?
Yeah, but it's been from like previous discussions, like several back, so. I wanted to chime in on the discussion regarding the design low gates and kind of the discussion that the DOJ had, if we can still have a clawback, or are we past that?
Well, can I finish what we're doing here first?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so hearing none, the motion is gonna pass. Okay, Kyle, you can go now.
All right. So just jumping back, I read through the discussion on the DOJ, and it kind of highlighted something that I think I'm not sure we have considered in the discussion. And this kind of goes to the broader sense of the all of the changes to OARs, et cetera, is the rules that we have to be able to enforce. And it goes back to the discussion that Michelle had as well, is how, if we have all these rules, how do we enforce them? And if we're unable to enforce them, then do we really need to have those rules on the books? And so I pose that question to the group is, if we were to, and the design locate, if we were to put this on the books and say, this is something that we want to provide for our users, how do we enforce it? How do we get a utility company to provide to a third party who is calling in for a locate or a design locate? How do we facilitate that? This is a big question on that, and we don't have to answer it here, but it goes to the point is that I'm trying to make is, as we look at changes to the OARs, to the ORSs, we need to be mindful on, one, what is the purpose of the board? And two, are we going to get something meaningful that we can affect change to help us reduce damages across the state? And it's not clear to me in this case if we would be able to even convince utilities that this is a good idea, or that we would have the authority to require that information. In the case when I was working for the city of Bend, I actually wrote it into the franchise agreement that they had to provide this information, to provide all of their mapping information on request. And so I guess that's really the question is, would we, one, have to go back and rewrite the OCC contract to make this change? What does that look like? What cost does that look like for the OUCC to implement XYZ change? So when we go through these discussions and the list of things that we have is, one, is there a financial obligation that the board will have to undertake to have the OCC implement this? Is there a benefit to the OUCC to have this on the books, and will it help us in our mission of reducing damages across the state? So I think these are great discussions to have. I think we do need to do some wholesale changes with the OARs and the ORSs, but this is going to take a little bit of time, and it's not something that we can do tomorrow. So I think as part of our strategic plan, this is something that we should fold in there, is legislative updates, and which updates will give us the ability to continue our mission and the ability to affect change that will help reduce damages. So in general, that's kind of the comments that I had with respect to changes to OARs, because they are not easy to get through.
Thank you, Kyle. And just just a note that we do have an OAR committee, and if you want to be involved, please be involved. Because Josh will be taking all of these to the committee. Kevin. Your hand's
Yes,
up.
yes, thank you. I'd like to, as part of Kyle's concern, and Josh alluded a little bit to it, that there's some creative ways with rule, but I'd like to answer Kyle's concern and recognizing that the board has a couple of paths, and one is to develop rules within a scope that is designed to protect underground facilities. And the other scope is to operate the one call center. And the way I'm looking at the DOJ interpretation, or excuse me, the advice, is that the board can decide how its one call center should operate, which is independent of any rulemaking process. So if the board wanted to implement a design information portal for those users, they can do that. And of course, as I've brought up in the OAR committee as well, and you touched on it, Kyle, you know, is that within the scope of the contract with the OCC? So there's two paths, and part of this board is to decide how its one call center will operate. And it certainly seems a viable option that you could turn on this design locate information request portal, you know, in the next couple of months without going through OAR, just based on the functions of how the board is deciding how the one call center should operate. So those are my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. I was honestly wondering the same thing on why DOJ would say we couldn't.
I don't think they said that they can't. It's just they can't do rules, but as alternative, there's nothing stopping the board from turning this feature on and having it available as an operation.
It's just the way we were proposing it, of actually changing the administrative rule to make this. They said there's ways you can do it within the confines of what we have existing, so we can't change.
Just to clarify, there's no extra cost from OCC for this. So the process is an online process that just gives back information that we already have in our system. So there's no generation of new information. It's already operator system information. They request, we give them essentially the names and phone numbers of the utilities in the area. And then if it escalates, then it becomes a normal design ticket output like any would.
So, but it also is voluntary from the utilities, right? We are not requiring them. And so for us not requiring them to be a part of it, there's a breakdown there.
It won't be used.
Right, yeah. So
Well, there's no reaction from the utilities, this process. They
It's all
request
on-
information from us, we give it to them. The utilities don't even hear about it. They're not even really a part of that information exchange.
this is more aimed at like engineering design firms,
This is like
essentially.
a step before requesting a design locate. You would do a design information request. We would say, okay, these utilities are in your area of design, and here's their contact information. Reach out to them specifically for maps. Here's the information, and then if they're like, no, we need marks, actually, then it would the process would be to escalate it to a design request locate.
Which has a longer lead time for locate marks.
Currently 10 days so that's the rule would come into effect because this is a pre-information, you know, versus just saying 10 days. It's X days with this information. This is how Washington does it. They have 4 or 5 days of the design information. Then it can be escalated to a locate request. So that's where rule would have to change to absorb it. But yeah, the system can be turned on. There's not a cost from us.
Okay, are your hands still up, Kyle and Kevin, or do you have, okay.
Just a follow-up. So from a design standpoint, as an engineer, I want to be able to have something where I go out into the field. The accuracy of maps that I have seen in the past, even with what I have designed, are the as-built do not reflect what is normally out in the field. There is a disconnect there, and it always has been within the industry. And so getting a design locate doesn't necessarily say this is exactly what there is, because there's different degrees as far as the information that is available out there. If we have the opportunity to turn on this feature that will allow designers to request this or have the ability to go and ask someone, it goes back to my original question: who at the branch or at the utility is going to be monitoring this? Who is going to be responsible at Ziply or at et cetera? So is there going to be one person, and how do we make sure that that is actually working? And is it actually easier for a designer to just call in the locate, wait the 10 days and get that information? And so that's really the question is that is the information valuable? Is it going to help us reduce the amount of damages across the board? And I'm just not convinced that the utilities are going to want to provide that information, or I've been told that they don't think that they should have to. That's why they have the locates. So it's just part of the discussion. Go ahead, Jessica.
We do actually respond to these now, right? Because we have utility coordination meetings with like Washington County, for instance, where we get prescribed a list of 55 projects that are going to take place for the next 6 years. And, we schedule out we're going to release the most current information in accordance with the needs. But it's ridiculous when you're operating across the state to have staff that's going to these 3 to 4 hour meetings, every month or every couple of weeks for that purpose. So if we can find a way, I mean, my design team would love it. We would have one portal where we're getting that information from, and not that it's going to be perfect, but that would make our lives so much easier. I think my bigger concern is, frankly, we're going to see a lot of this coming in the next 24 months. Like, there's going to be $200 million or more being spent every year for the next 3 years on telecommunications deployment in the state of Oregon. If we don't find a way to reduce the time that, we need to find a way to differentiate between locates for excavation that is going to occur within 2 days and this design work that's coming at us and is going to come at us with a shotgun blast. We are going to set ourselves up for failure. So not putting some stopgaps into place now, and even entertaining what we can do with our rules to extend the time period for design locate information, finding ways that we can convey the maps that OCC already has, right? We're going to just be in a big problem.
So I just have a comment. Something came to mind because you said design work and you said portal. And for me, now I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, just in general, can we take that ticket off, period? Just take it off and stay online saying for design work, period. For the OUNC, design work, this is where you go. You click on this, it becomes yet maybe another place to go.
Training.
Like, just another inbox per se, and just say, okay, these are your people where we're gonna send this message to, the request, blah, blah, blah. Instead of actually sending the ticket out.
I think that's how it works.
No, it's right now, the locates, you call in a locate or you request a design ticket locate, and it is actually sent to our locator.
No, I mean, but if we turn this feature on, I think that's what Scott was saying, that wouldn't happen anymore, that it would all be using one call concepts information and automatically responding to the ticket. Am I getting that right, Scott? Maybe you should
Correct.
just
Yeah, so
describe.
this process is between the excavator and local concepts, essentially right now. So they're requesting that information. We're giving it just to them.
Right.
And then if they decide to escalate it, they're doing what they're doing now. They're gonna call it so even to Kyle's point, we're like, well, I want marks. You can always get marks. This process would just impose a lead time to that for the entities that don't need marks, that really just want maps or just want contact information of utilities to work to coordinate. So yeah, to exactly your point, Jessica, with all the infrastructure changes going on, this is a real opportunity to truncate some of those requests down. And we did at some point share Washington's data. There's a substantial decrease when you could have, I don't remember the numbers, so I'm just pulling them out. There could be 100 design information requests and only 60 design locate requests. So there's a substantial diminish of entities that just want who are the utilities working in my area rather than come out and mark no matter what. So
Within that area. Okay, I understand that. I was just thinking in general, just taking that design locate request off. And that. You would have to go somewhere else to get that information, somewhere on our OUNC website or something like that. It's just something that just popped in my head. Go ahead, Kyle.
If I remember correctly, and I'm trying to search right now, is that the design locate is written within the ORSs and the OARs, correct? So it is an obligation that we have to perform this. And when I I didn't mean to derail this discussion, and we can definitely take this offline. It was more, my point was that as we were going through and looking at all the OARs and ORSs, having a strategic plan on where we want to go with these changes in the future is really where I'm trying to go with this. This is a very robust discussion, and I think it would be best served if we take it to the OAR committee to continue that discussion. So I want to be respectful of what we're trying to accomplish here. So rather than getting into the minutia and trying to solve it here at the board meeting, I would be happy to continue the conversation at the OAR committee meeting.
Absolutely. That's exactly where I was going to go with that. So
Anyone, I sent the letter from DOJ to the committee only. If anyone else is interested, we have approval. So I'll send it to you as well, Jessica. Anyone else, just let me know. I'll get it here.
Okay. Do you have any others in your report? Are you done with your
That is
report?
all. Thank you. Yeah,
Okay.
just following on Michelle's comment about trying to balance responsibilities and commitments and things like that. Thank you all for making the time for this. I know it's a chunkier day and it's a lot of work outside of this as well. And it's, I think, just reflecting back on what she was saying, thank you all for your commitment to this board.
Kitty? Do you have anything? No. No? Okay. All right. With that said, are we looking at a 20-minute break here? Or would a 10 or 15 be best? 10-minute break? Okay. All right. We'll be back here at 10:51. When did you see you leave? Good. How are you?
Oh.
Yeah.
For more reasons.
I think I would just, that's great. Yeah. You see with the
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, you're
Yeah.
right. You're lucky on that.
I know.
When you got,
Yeah.
And so I was looking to see the
data by county.
You love it.
Now we're at the market concern. My doctor wants to make some sort of-
Aspiring towards.
Yeah, so much.
I think that lends
So much.
to.
It's all
Are we going to bring this? To make sure we get some consistent design. I also asked.
I've only ever seen those reports for our data. Are we also doing state, state data? So that's great to know.
She was, you know, getting there.
Like, are there any like running through my head?
No, let me break that straight up. So you're the first. Oregon. Yeah. Yeah. Correct. And then are you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've never.
Well, and that's.
Like this
Well, I
operates.
should tell you, railroads, you know, they don't want
So you're already from the call.
So it's just super interesting how
Yeah.
So you like different.
Yeah, the flex was $130 on the flex.
Really?
Yeah.
They used to.
They don't still have a service animal and military pet, but other ones are not.
They're not for the liability.
I don't know.
Yeah. And we
I
can.
don't know if they're over here or what.
You can arrange for.
Yeah, I checked someone, they're like,
Yeah.
Well, from Oklahoma, versus
So you would
great job presenting and organizing it.
because where are you going?
You mentioned maybe the next week we have one, like.
So probably it's gonna be a quick agreement.
So
we have two good homeworks already set up.
Yeah, because I just heard that. And eventually
How many more? The board just met. Years after. Yeah.
They were.
And then, that's true. So Josh.
They were all very excited. Very good friend Cameron, and they all.
And so this job is not. Our fund, she started.
Yeah.
Great, thanks.
multiple
Oh my gosh.
You know,
Well, thank you.
I know, I don't see that right. Okay, so I got a dog for. Should read the I let it slide over down, like, put those down, bring those back. Well, I mean, it's like, yeah, and so.
have to give her back. She doesn't really button clamp on, she doesn't really like run her.
There's some rubber in
It's not fair.
It's like.
But apparently it has really nice like. I know.
Yes.
Right. Yes, good for the world.
One is they're just.
Indoor
So I have.
So where do you think we're gonna
Yeah.
Are you renting a car?
think a lot?
Bad news. That's the drive that I make. So you'll say, oh, Melanie, you're Wyoming on I-80. That's exactly what you drive all the time.
You're the nice one. So, Wyoming in July.
Officially, I can tell.
It's already snowed. Oh, my son got a elk. He did.
Oh, yeah.
No. Bow hunting.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah, just 2 weeks. This is community and they were. Then you gotta. It's pretty far. And you were. Yeah.
I've seen.
Yeah.
What do you do here?
Yes, that's right. So.
Oh, yeah. So what you're saying would be like.
Oh, that's
Oh, so, yeah.
Well, that's right, yes.
Yeah, every time I go. Oh my gosh. Oh, wait. Are we ready?
Yeah.
Hi. I've been chitter chattering. Okay. Okay. It's 10:51, ladies and gentlemen. 10:51. Meow. Let's get going. You guys remember the meow jokes, right? Yeah. No, you don't. Because you weren't in Hamilton.
I wasn't even.
Okay. Is everyone online? Are we all ready to go? Don't have our secretary. Stop. This.
Oh.
Good job. Nice call.
I
I know call. I know, I
want you to
understand.
see how nice the writing was made. Very legible.
We go around and around.
Three,
Yes.
just, yeah, no.
I understand.
So I like to be at 30
And you're
minutes.
saying that you don't want to-
My God.
When you were in.
Oh, well, yeah.
All right, so we're ready to rip and roll. We're gonna hit into the committee reports. And just, I want everyone to understand that you can be a part of any committee here. You just have to let Kitty know, and then you will get.
As far as the committees go, do we have, and I should know this if we do, is there a schedule, like predicted out, like yearly schedule?
As far as
Or is it always
committees?
just like a week in advance or 2 weeks in advance? How far in advance should we be aware when the meeting's gonna occur?
A day.
I'm just kidding. That's helpful. Once the chairperson of the committee tells me, okay, let's schedule this, I get the agenda going approved, then I send a Google invite to the committee members ASAP. So it might be, we try to at least have 2 weeks notice.
The reason I'm asking is because I've seen to have had conflicts that were kind of unavoidable, and I was just curious if I could block certain times out, hold certain times if it was on a certain recurrence, but.
Yeah, like
Isn't OARs on a monthly date?
Supposed to be.
it has kind of been every third Thursday. I know like when Jessica policy and procedure, she had it out like 3 months. But I'd say the norm usually is not that.
OAR
Okay.
tariff is Wednesday, the 21st, so.
So, right, you will not get an invite if you are not a committee member. So just be aware of that. If you want to be a part of that committee, you need to let Kitty know, because then you get the invite.
Well, every member does get the announcement through the call center.
Yes.
So I do it like a private Google invite to members. And then the free format goes out announcing policy procedure or OAR.
Yes, every time we have an OAR meeting, I have a conflict. Right, yes, me as well. Okay, so OARs, Micah is not here. However, we did have a great discussion with Josh's report, so Melanie, yes, Kyle has. Kyle.
I would support having a more regular meeting schedule for committees and agree that it should be scheduled almost in tandem with the OUNC yearly schedule.
Okay, so, okay. And that might work. I mean, OARs Jessica and I were just discussing OARs. OARs, is something that is a huge part of us. It is us, essentially. And so I personally believe that everyone should be involved in OARs. So maybe it's something that we can discuss at a point where it can become a monthly meeting. Even though Micah is the chair and he is the one that schedules the meetings, maybe it can be something that we do on a monthly basis, kind of like what we're doing here. Just a thought. So, OAR, nothing is, or Micah's not here, so there's no report on it. Did we have you report on anything?
I think we covered it between what Scott covered and what I covered.
Okay, Scott Crosby, publicity. Do you have anything for us? Can you hear us?
Sure. I can share that slide. It's just the 8-on-1 day recap. This.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's
Say, Kitty, stop. Wicked.
Okay, there we go. So I already referred to this, but just as a quick overview, we put out a news release on our newswire did radio interviews with KDX and then the Lars Larson show. That was through our Alpha Media. So thanks to Kitty for working with our contact there and to get that set up. It was on a conspiracy theory Thursday, if you listen to the clip. So that was the lead in. It's pretty comical. The additional media coverage in various other publications that picked it up. Safety Night at Hillsborough Hops was great. They really did go the extra mile on making sure you couldn't miss it from the gate to the end of the game. It was on the banners, it was on their signs, it was rotating throughout the game. They were making announcements throughout the game. They did a lot of different, like throwing t-shirts out to the crowd, and one of them was like kids dressing up in full uniform, and it was all sponsored by 811. So the messaging was consistent. They also had it on their stream game broadcast, on their website, on their social media. So full court press there. And then Kitty worked with JJ Harrison and the St. Paul Rodeo to get posts from them as well. So our partners on 811 Day posted about that as well. And then Carver Ties was just their ongoing presence. And I think the one that Mitch mentioned that was in the shop is out of the shop. So based on the numbers we're seeing, we're getting more than we paid for right now. So that's good. And then, as I mentioned, there were several others throughout the country that were doing the same thing we were doing. So all in all, successful. Yes?
So I got a really interesting complaint call last week from a very angry homeowner about underground locates on her yard. And just, it really struck a chord for me because she thought she was just calling, the complaints line at Zipley Fiber. And lo and behold, she got me and somebody who happens to sit on this board. And it dawned on me, we might, as we're getting closer to this big influx of cash, want to think about a paint, don't faint campaign. Because homeowners need to understand that, yes, the sidewalk is the right of way, but that right of way may actually encroach upon your yard and your bushes. And because of where we're doing work, we may need to locate utilities that are going onto your private property as well. But generally speaking, we're still within that right of way. Paint, don't faint. Paint, don't faint. Did you just pick that up? I even wrote it down. The paint, don't faint campaign.
Put that on.
This woman was really mad. She was, you guys are gonna install all this stuff and I didn't give you permission while it's in the public right of way. And we want to know where your gas line is because we don't want to hit that when we're doing directional mooring, right? That's kind of important to us. So it's just a homeowners awareness campaign that I think we have an opportunity to take on.
I agree. I've taken a handful of those similar calls to that too, either mad about the paint or mad about someone on their property.
Right. Oh yeah, you're trespassing.
Yeah.
That was my favorite.
Yeah, although there has been a couple of them that suggested, just a call or a note would have been nice, so I know what they were doing out there. So maybe on the other side of it too, we could work with, I don't know if it's likely, but to work with the locators to let them know,
Door hangers when they're
Goes-
doing
it
a
goes a long
locate on
way.
property, just like when we're
Takes
doing
away
construction.
Yeah, especially in some of the outlying communities, they're not as friendly to strangers walking around on their property.
So that's something that we do as a utility, but how would you approach it from our standpoint? Go ahead.
I was just curious, was this Karen, the Portland metro area? Okay, well,
It was Yamhill.
okay, well, come December, I got the city, they're gonna send a mailer out with the bill. It just took 6 months to get on their docket, the mail stuffer. But that'll help a little, but yeah, like, I don't know how else to, other than, whenever we do stuff, we always have to do door hangers. So yeah, I don't know, because how do other communities deal with that?
I remember years ago discussion of trying to get a door hanger, like locating Incas out and say they've got one property, but is there something they can just walk up to the other two houses surrounding whatever with a little door hanger? Hey, you might see new paint, just something to inform them so they're not like, what the heck? I just came home and there's red marks on my driveway and I'm not doing any digging or.
What is going on here? Everyone wants to know what projects are happening. I'm feeling calls from cities too. So City Hall is getting these calls when we're out doing work, but this was the first time it was very specifically about locating. So, maybe that's an opportunity for us.
For sure.
I like it too. And we do have a new link on our website for homeowners, to the CGA, that kind of what to expect, but that's more focused to the first time homeowner caller. But it does kind of explain the marks and what's going on, but maybe not to the person that's next door once their front yard clean. Josh and I are meeting Monday. We're going to be doing kind of a preview, overview of publicity and training education budget before we then talk to.
Scott, did you have anything? Are you still on? No. Mitch, I see that your hand is raised. Welcome.
Oh, sorry, guys, I was a little bit late, half an hour today, but just to go over what Jessica was saying, you know, those kind of complaints, they always come to every utility, correct? And most of the time, you know, they look at the flags and they see a name there. That's where they're gonna call first. We have plenty of those every day. And pretty much the approach there, it's, you know, most of the utilities, they will door tag if it's a project, correct? The problem is when we have only one house that it's in that, usually you don't tag one house, or usually you tag, you know, the house that you're working on. And with those projects, you know, the best practice is to give them, you know, an opportunity to see. And we have door tags and we tell them what's going on and about, you know, right away. And most of the homeowners, they don't understand the right of way actually goes in their property, quite some footage, correct? And that's where the confusion is. And if you put that paint on the ground on their grass, on their yard, they will be, you know, a little bit upset saying that, no, this is my property. Well, it is not. And that's where everything comes to a complaint. But most of them, after you explain them what's going on, they'll go away. Sooner or later. There might be some of them that are trying to get more out of that, but it's, you know, we have this battle for years with locates on the ground, and I don't think there's an easy way to get rid of this.
Yeah. Senate?
Yeah.
For City?
Thank you.
All right, going into our ad hoc committees, the Budget Tariff and Audit Committee has not met in the past few months. However, we do have an active audit going on, and Josh, can you just give us a lowdown on that?
Sure, yeah, I kind of referred to that earlier, but they've asked us for everything under the sun. TBC has given them access to all of the QuickBooks and ledger info that they needed. I followed up with everything from related parties of people that serve on our board and the OUCC board, changes to our bylaws, changes to our policy and procedures manual, updates to the service tariff, board minutes Katie has provided. There were a few things that were a little sketchy, and we're going to sort that out in the conversation that we have with them tomorrow morning. I think is what we set it up for Thursday. Okay, just getting it straight in my head. Yeah, soon. And then our own inventory of things that the board owns that we have are, you know, in our possession right now. Yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see what they come back with. But this is why we're doing it. It's just to make sure that we're following the right procedures, everything's in order, and if it's not, we can fix it. So they're going to come back with actionable suggestions and recommendations of what we can do that we're not doing now.
Okay, so they've started the process of collecting information. When are they going to have the report to us?
That's a good question. We should get an answer on that tomorrow on the call. Because some of the goalposts have moved since we signed the contract, and some of the information I wasn't able to get to them right away. And so they've been going through the TBC stuff, and I don't know where they're at with it right now. But it didn't sound like it was a lengthy process. It sounded like a matter of weeks, probably maybe even by the next week.
So I just, question for everyone here with the tariff change, has anyone heard anything from their company about it? Any grumblings? No? Good. Perfect. All right, Mitch, do you have anything for training and education?
Not a lot. I like to thank Josh and Katie for continuing the training. I know Josh had a full schedule with all the PGE trainings. Thanks for doing that. Hopefully in the next 2 weeks, you're gonna be done with them and then kind of go more onto a regular schedule than holding those. Locates are all good to go with the training. Not a lot to everything. It's schedule. Everything it's on schedule. Not a lot unless you guys have any questions for me.
I just have a question for the presentations that you've been doing. Well, I just want to say something. I think it's wonderful that it's happening. And are they mostly PGE people? Is this all for PGE people?
PGE and PGE contractors, but mostly PGE. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, and you said you had 300 plus people?
Total, yeah, but it's been averaging 20 per session. And the last one I did in Salem on Monday was 40-ish, like should maybe just short of 40. I'm doing Oregon City tomorrow, 2 in Portland, 2 in Wilsonville next week, and then there's one other location that's Hillsborough.
So it's their
And then-
contractors that PGE is requiring them to take this class.
Yes.
And you're getting the positive feedback. Is the training 2 hours?
It's supposed to be 2 hours, and I started doing 2, and then they said it would really help us if you can condense that. And what I found is you can scale it. I've been finishing out closer to 1 hour, and then they can ask questions at the 1 hour mark. So yeah, it's worked out well that way. And then I've had people come up afterwards asking questions, and so exchanging parts and things like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
And then the next one will be Medford.
That's all I got.
Jessica?
We're
Policy
at
and procedures?
We ain't doing nothing.
Nothing?
We're done.
Nada. I do have a question though on, Josh was asking about the write-offs. And possibly changing that, we would have to go back and open that committee up and change that. And
I was wondering if we could just make a motion and approve it here in the board meeting, since it's just a single line item change in the PMP manual. Would you have any objection to that, Madam Chair?
I personally don't, but I'm not too sure about them.
Okay, let me give you the exact wording for the motion. Ready, Scott? Okay, hold on. Find where it's at. Josh, where'd we put it?
Yeah, now I should have it memorized. But
Yeah, I know. Come on, let me down, man.
And would it be any repercussions? So just go ahead, state your motion first.
Okay, so I move that we amend the policy and procedure manual, chapter 3.5, delinquent debts, charges, and account management, under sub 4, so 3.5.4, got that, Scott? To read, ranging from 1 cent to 25, comma, in the first sentence. And for the ease of everyone in the room, I will read the full sentence for you, but the motion doesn't need to reflect that. For delinquent accounts with a small dollar amount ranging from 1 cent to $5, that's the present reading, we're going to amend to $25 if the motion is accepted. If the amount cannot be combined with any other invoices that the company or organization has not paid, the one-call contractor may make an informed decision to write it off per section 3.5.3.
next sentence, this information will be presented to the board as a part of the contractor's regular monthly reporting, and the Oregon Utility Notification Center Executive Director will keep records and track of these accounts on an ongoing basis.
So Jessica Eppley made a motion to amend policy and procedures manual 3.5.4 to read ranging from 1 cent to $25, quote unquote.
So I hear a second.
One second.
Any discussion here?
Yes.
Okay. Hold on, Josh is talking, we'll come to you.
That's fine.
3.5.2 will also have to be changed to reflect this change because there's a reference to 3.5.4 in our manual.
Why did you do that? Okay. All right, Kyle?
I would propose to table this until this is written up and presented as part of our regular agenda in December's meeting or wait, October's meeting. Sorry, we're couldn't remember what month we're in. So this is a substantial change to a policy and procedure. It seems like this is a little bit more impromptu. So I'm not really sure why we can't take a little bit of time to make sure we have the wording for the motion correctly done so that everybody can consider it at the next meeting.
I would have to agree, and can you bring us also to the effect that it will have on us as well?
I can put together.
Since we're still over this. The way in the policies and procedures, Jessica, the way you interpret that, it would be one call's decision on anything under $25. They would make that decision, not the board, and then they would bring that to the board after they've decided. Is that how you read that?
They would be giving authority to One Call Concepts for anything $25 or less to follow our write-off procedures in our policy and procedures manual. This is just changing the threshold where they get to make an independent decision. And that was referencing from Josh's report of having done this initial review of write-offs with One Call Concepts and noting a high volume of accounts where, in his informed opinion, based upon my interpretation, they probably should have been able to make that decision on it without involving staff.
I tend to agree with Kyle. And I think there was also some questions about maybe potentially checking with DOJ about if we were authorized to write off a certain number. There's a level I'd like to know that before we take action.
Okay, so what do we do with this? Can we just table this, or do we have to go through the entire motion and disregard it? How do we work that?
Failed. It can be withdrawn or we can vote it down.
Okay, so what would be I don't necessarily want to vote it down, I guess.
Well, it can be brought up at the next meeting. So that's permissible. It couldn't be brought up again at this meeting. I requested reconsideration, which I won't, given the current discussion.
Pretty clean, just vote it down.
Is it, so it won't affect anything going forward if we vote it down now? All right, so all approve, please say aye. All opposed, state the same.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right, so hearing that we have not approved this motion, it does not pass. And we will consider it in October when you bring us some more discussion points.
just responding to Nate's comment too, from past guidance from the DOJ, we're not subject to the Oregon Accounting Manual, which some other state agencies are. So that could play into this as well. That gives us a little more flexibility than some other state agencies, but I'll make that a part of the brief.
Okay. Jessica, do you have anything else? Nope. All right. Kyle, do you have anything for us?
Why, yes, I do. We had a very robust meeting yesterday, and we had some good conversation regarding kind of Michelle's comments. How is ITIC going, and the rollout? I think Scott, one of the questions I think is good for this group is to really understand that there is could be some bugs or some perceived bugs with how the addresses are being recorded, and could be because of some mapping that the agencies have or the counties have provided. Is there a way to double check the accuracy of the maps and the addresses so that we can ensure that the locates that are getting called out for specific addresses are actually showing up on those? And maybe is this something that we would do a spot check on?
Good question.
I think the question is, what sort of address verification processes is One Call Concepts using?
Yes, thank you, Jessica.
And this particular issue was a specific excavator in Klamath Falls that I've had a couple conversations with, and it was a use of the tool issue. Michelle had asked if we would look at Klamath specifically to make sure their mapping isn't an issue, which we can do, although having talked to this person individually, specifically, I think this is more of a specific user issue. And so I will reach back out to them again, specifically. I did offer them training and contact directly with our ITICS coordinators. So, but I will talk with our ITIC coordinators as well to make sure there's nothing specific about Klamath, but we're using mapping data that's pretty comprehensive.
Okay. Thanks, Scott. Additionally, we talked about the dirt report that Josh presented. I think that gives us some direction as the OUCC Council on where we can target some of our outreach in the coming year. We also talked about mandatory reporting and how that would be something that we'd be interested in trying to promote a little bit more widely and try to get a plan put together to try in the next few years, bring that in as part of how we operate as an industry, and get more towards mandatory reporting, and why we believe that those benefits would really help us target our outreach and help reduce those damages across the board. So that was a pretty robust conversation that we had, and something that I think the OUCCs are really interested in doing that as well. We also talked about the outreach and outreach and marketing, Josh, with Royal Media, our media outreach, and where we found some success there. So, and what our plan is going forward in the coming year on what types of media and marketing tools that we want to use for getting our message out there in the coming year. And then also, lastly, they did nominations for the upcoming year. So I think that kind of covers it. But lastly, some of the counselors are getting stood back up. There's still a couple areas, Central Oregon and one of the other eastern councils has not really got much traction on getting participants. So that's an ongoing effort that we're trying to get councils re-engage and getting and talking again now that we're kind of exiting the pandemic timeline. That's not the right word, but we're out of the pandemic, so to speak. So and going into the next chapter. Scott, did I miss anything important?
One of the big things I want to share with this group in particular is that we did pass a motion to, over the last few years in response to pandemic, we have withheld our monthly funds going out to the specific councils under the guise that it's available to them upon request without any consideration. Just a little background, we give $2,000 a year of the $60,000 we get from OUNC to each one of the councils, and then we have additional funds available as needed. And so what we've done in response to pandemic, because there aren't the opportunities to do this same type of activities, is withheld that 2,000 under the guise that if they have an activity requested, automatic approval, whereas the additional funds that we have set aside that are beyond that 2,000 are based on approval of the executive team. And so much like last year, we got to this point in the year, we have a substantial amount left. So we approved the spending of $20,000 towards media advertisement. Kitty's going to work with some of her contacts. So we basically want to piggyback off what the OUNC is doing, but in a more regional approach rather than a targeted approach that the OUNC did. So like you guys might go after, Klamath or wherever the higher need is, where our mission is to get the word out all over Oregon. So we might do more focused marketing in Astoria or the east side of Oregon, or there might not be Umatilla County. Yeah, it's world leaders in irrigating.
That's true.
So we did approve the spending of up to $20,000. And unfortunately, we didn't have our treasurer is stepped down from his role, so we didn't have an updated treasurer's report at this. So we have to do some accounting to make sure that we have enough to spend $20,000 to leave $7,000 for the end of the year costs that we have coming up. So that's a big goal. Just again, I always mentioned to the OUCC that we have a fiduciary responsibility to this board to go out and spread that message on a statewide basis. So just to confirm that is our effort with this. I do expect the conversation at least to happen in December that about reallocating those funds as we had done historically in January before the pandemic, just specifically 2,000 to each one of the councils, so that hopefully spark kind of the movement that was happening with local regional activities. So that's happening.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
Go ahead.
End of report.
Thank you. National news, do we have anything there?
Nope, just is everyone receiving headlines and scoop? Thank you. Is it helpful?
It is.
Okay, good. Exactly.
Old business, nominations for 2023 Board of Directors. Kitty?
All right, guys, so I'm going to be pulling up the screen for Poll Everywhere, and there'll be a QR code for everyone to scan, so your nominations are private, and fingers crossed this works. I did a test run last night.
We're doing it right now?
Yes.
Awesome.
So it'll be, the first should show up for chairperson, vice chair, secretary, and treasurer. So for each one, I don't know, like a minute-ish. Okay. Drum roll, let's see. Everyone should have to do it.
At the screen. No, not yet. There you go. Now do it. Make it big.
Josh, you have an opinion?
Yeah.
Kitty, can you share your screen?
Oh, sorry, guys. Thank you. Keep me on track here.
What happened? Oh, we turned it around. I don't want to lose my phone. Oh. You gotta scan that. Let it open up and then. Did it open the window for you? I hate Androids. I don't know how to make that work.
Wow.
Oh, here it is. I gotta go to this.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. you are.
Sure, there you go.
Yes. There you
So
go.
what
Look
should
at
happen is,
now you can put things in.
is everyone good?
Hold on.
Kitty, I don't know how it is for other people on Zoom, but that's how it's showing up for me.
You minimize your screen and shift it around. Scroll.
Oh, wow. You're asking a lot for somebody that's technically challenged.
There it is.
There you go. That works.
Awesome.
Yeah, let me know when everyone's.
Just a sec.
Oh. That's right.
Just a reminder here, you are not required to nominate. If you'd like to. You shouldn't have to pay for that. No, no, you're. You don't belong.
Is that an email from Micah that you're working on?
No,
Oh,
he's
now it's scanning. Oh, it is gone.
Oh.
It's gonna flash.
Just, yeah, again.
Wall Street again.
Oh, yeah, it's. Yeah.
There you go. Oh, okay, scan again. Scan, start that. Okay, scan it.
Kitty, have you done the next one? I keep just getting the chair.
No, I have no other chair. We're having technical difficulties. Hold on a second. Can
Okay.
everyone, did everyone on Zoom get scanned in that they wanted to? Did it work for you? Are you done yet? Kyle, did it work for you?
Yes, I selected my first nomination.
Okay, perfect. Is everyone ready to move on? And hit submit. Paul? Good job. Yep, he's ready. He's ready. Okay, now go back to your camera. All right. I think we're ready to move on to the next. Okay, there you go. Okay,
Start there.
here's the next.
Does it show up vice chair for you guys?
Yes.
No, it took a minute to update. Yeah, no.
Oh, really?
Sorry, can you put that back up again?
It-
Well, I closed it. I thought we.
So did I.
Scan things.
Oh, okay, hold on. I have to keep escaping and then go back. Yeah. I got it.
Thank you, Josh.
Yeah, what's taking everybody so?
You're an animal. Look at you.
Right there. Thing on a piece of paper, collecting in the hat.
Nobody wore a hat, so we couldn't do it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Good point, Dave.
We would have wore a hat, we could have done it the old way.
Plus, that's how we got to where Melanie is filling two different positions. We suspect she's cheating.
We can't.
Totally.
Yeah, you're like, I want more.
Yes, that's right. Give me them all.
You know, I could do all 3 cuts. Let's do that. Okay,
Yes.
your selection of treasurers on. Oh. It updates on your phone.
Oh, there it is.
No. Oh, okay, hold on. Oh, there it goes. Oh, come on, man.
Now, if they're not approved yet, can we nominate them?
Everyone's
Isn't
approved.
Kevin's still a guest?
No, he's approved.
Oh, I thought he said guest today when he introduced himself.
He may not have submitted his oath of office.
But we can nominate him for
Sure.
spots.
Sure.
Perfect.
And last one,
Same person for both.
we can. That's an option too. Yeah.
Will you do the voting the same way?
Huh?
Will you do the voting the same way?
Yes.
That's kind of cool.
Come back to the chairperson.
Micah, somebody nominated, but he's had mentioned because his term is up, he was not going to.
Withdraw.
He doesn't want to be considered.
That's it. Yes, I'll have the same format next month for elections.
You have. Are you free to share that? Or
You're gonna share it with us?
so I can document it?
Chair nominations, Jessica, Melanie, and Nate. We removed Micah,
You can remove me as well. I'm not.
Jessica and Melanie. For vice chair, Melanie, Jamie, Jessica, and Paul. The treasurer, Alva, Melanie, Jessica, and Kyle. Sorry,
That was for secretary.
that was treasurer, Alva, Melanie, Jessica, Kyle. And secretary, Paul, Kevin, and Lee.
Paul, Kevin Lee.
And then will you check with all those and make sure that they're willing to do it before we vote?
Did we accept the nomination?
Thank you.
So just so I have
That's
it,
right now, I guess.
I just want to go with that again, right? So for chair, I have Jessica and Melanie, vice chair Melanie, Jamie, Jessica, Paul, secretary Paul, Kevin Lee, treasurer Alva, Melanie, Jessica, Kyle.
Right.
You qualify.
Well, I'm just.
You qualify.
You were trying to be quiet. Your words.
You're checking with us now? I'm like, how you doing? Can we have a moment of silence?
Yes.
I mean, that's something maybe that can be done between now and the next meeting
I-
and not put people on the spot. That might be on.
Peer pressure.
Peer pressure.
They did have
Yes,
a problem
before
with it.
the end of, before next meeting, make sure Everyone is good to go with their nominations. Okay. Yes.
In roles that only have 2 nominees, is it helpful to know that prior to voting? So if one of the 2 decide that they're interested, then that would be a single person, and if the one interested in getting to the next meeting, we only have 1 person. That's my only concern without having a commitment today. The other ones all have multiple people. But if we get to the next meeting, and it's in one, it's out, would we move into that meeting that point, or would we reopen it out? That's just the question. I'm fine either way. I just want to make sure that we're not locked in if we go until the next meeting and then we get there and there's only 1 person. Or no people, or if both people said no, thank you. Then I would we be able to reopen up nominations and be next prior to a vote?
I'm not sure how that works. Scott, do you have? Could we do an email nomination in the event that were to occur?
We kept nominations open until the vote.
Okay.
Before. So.
Okay.
And I think last year Michael was the only nominee for chair, wasn't he? Back in what I thought he just said, yeah, I can do it again.
Right.
I feel like we've been in this position before.
Okay. All right. So let's just keep those nominations opened up until, let's say, a few days before next board meeting. Scott, when you send out those notes, can you just make a note of that?
I mean, I can add it to minutes, but they're not official.
Yes. Just make sure everyone knows.
That's probably a vote spot.
Okay. All right, what is the last thing? on the
New
agenda?
business. Jessica.
Oh, wait, we had the legislative discussion process.
Oh, we're still not.
Uh,
Old business, yeah.
this is old business. Okay.
Is it?
We're on to our new business.
No, we're still on.
No discussion of legislative process? Yeah, did we?
Will you handle that in your report?
I covered it. The big standout that we were supposed to discuss as the board was the service tariff exemptions, whether or not we want to pursue that in the 2023 session or postpone that
And
in
that
the future.
will be tabled to OARs, right?
We would have to make it, if we're going to take it to the 2023 session, we would have to make a decision today to bring that forward. Otherwise, we're not going to make the deadline unless we are able to get it into another vehicle, another bill.
So what would that process be? Go ahead.
I have philosophy on this. This
All
is
right.
not a 1 session issue, right? This is a 2 to 3 session issues. And if we're gonna even have this conversation and get the stakeholders to the table, we gotta put the legislative content in so that we can start having conversations with stakeholders. You know this, Josh, but I'm saying this for the edification of the board. So, the question is this something that we would consider
An ad hoc committee?
No, because I don't think it would be an ad hoc issue. I think, I mean, personally, I think OERs and ORS, that committee actually should just be part of the board as a whole. I don't think it should be confined to a committee. To your point, Mel, I think you articulated it well, that it affects all of us and it's really at the crux of what we do. So that should be board business. But on this particular issue, I think there's a lot of wisdom in putting the legislative concept forward now so that we can have those conversations, because your stakeholders are going to be basically Oregon Telecommunications Association, Oregon cities and counties, more or less, right? Because that's the representatives of the affected parties. They're not going to talk to us about this issue until you have an LT brought forward. So it will inform the discussion for the board as to whether or not, and just because we put a legislative concept forward, doesn't mean we have to move forward with it. It just means we're talking about it.
are you prepared to do that? Do you have what you need to?
So the question would be looking at the existing exemptions, if there are any that you want to keep in place, but you know, I think we could craft something that makes sense. It's just a matter of, are we doing piecemeal changes, or are we gonna overhaul the whole exempt, any of those exempt groups?
There are 5 exemptions. Cities with a population under 15,000, telecommunications utilities serving fewer than 50,000 access lines and regulated by the Public Utilities Commission under ORS Chapter 759. That's all small carriers. Cable system operators serving fewer than 15,000 customers. Utilities, special districts, people's utilities districts, and authorities providing electricity, water, or sanitary sewer service to fewer than 15,000 residential customers, and telecommunications cooperatives.
I think this is way too big of an issue to have at an end of a meeting when people aren't prepared, that we have to submit an LC that has to be defined of what we actually want. And so I think this is something that needs to brought more discussion with a little more parameters, because if you're one of those affected parties and you're talking about a change, you know, and we didn't have time to consider or even come into it, I think that's a bad policy to try to make this decision without a thorough plan.
I agree.
Well, to that point, Jessica, were you saying that we're going to see an increased growth? So even those groups that we're talking about, I mean, that demographics going to change, right?
Yes.
How do you know?
Yeah, I would say we would start something like this at the beginning of January and just start discussing it. That would be my 2 cents. Yeah, I don't feel comfortable.
I mean, if we wanted to, I apologize. If we wanted to work on it starting next meeting, then as the session went along and we looked at that and stuff, we were getting a rider on a different bill to get it incorporated. But I think we need to have a thorough discussion on what the new parameters are, what those numbers are, who will be in it. So I'm not opposed to working on it now, but I just don't think today's the day that we can get that hammered out.
Yeah, and I don't have those answers either, you know, based on what you did to pull some numbers on it. That's all I know at this point. And what's in statute. Right.
Just one question for the group. So you listed out all the exemptions for the over whatever it is, 250 or whatever. Are you looking at eliminating the exemption for those who receive fewer than 50 tickets a year as well?
You have no idea. Do you have enough time to put together something for, put it on the agenda for October, or should we do?
If it's not a burning need right now, I could use more time because I'm going to be really pushing on the strategic plan and budget and learning how to say it without stumbling on my words. So that's going to take a big chunk of time.
So,
and then I'm gone for a better part of a week for users group.
so needless to say, what we had thought was going to happen at the beginning of the year is not going to happen next year going into session. We're not going to take anything into session.
That was the question.
Yeah.
And I think that was the only one that we thought might, was underground facility, no. Mandatory positive response, no. Mandatory white lining, no. Design review system
We're
is
just not
obviously
ready.
But I think some of these were, it wasn't a matter of whether or not we're ready or not. It was a matter of can we solve the problem in other ways besides changing statute.
So I feel like we should table this, maybe not next month, but the month after.
That sounds good. And if I can get it by the next month, I will.
Okay. And then just, if you could come back to us and give us an explanation of each, you know, the impact that it will happen, will be on not only us, but them as well. And if November is still pushing it. we can push it out.
Okay.
How I feel.
And does it make
Anyone else?
sense to contact those individual groups and let them know that it's a topic of discussion if they want to provide any comment?
If we get serious about it, yes, 100%. If not, I don't want to create red flags or fires where there are none, if we're not going to pursue it.
So if we do pursue it, wouldn't you think that we would, it would be like changing the tariff? We would have to do a public, would you have to do?
No. So this process is different than that completely. So the issue, I mean, I'm on the board of OTA, so I can tell you, Grant is not going to sit down and have a conversation with Josh until he has language that he can take to his members and say, guess what? OUNC is looking at this and tell me what your issues are, right? So yes, we will engage stakeholders, but the start of that process is the legislative concept. That LC, when we put that in, that's what kicks off that conversation. So we can do all the prep work we want, but we aren't going to be informed by stakeholders of how it's going to affect them until we have that concept on the table. And just because we put a concept on the table doesn't mean it becomes legislation. That's what starts the conversation, which is why I was making the recommendation that we start that conversation through this vehicle now, because the alternative would be that we're waiting 2 years. This is not a short session topic. It's not budget impacting. So it wouldn't be eligible to come up again until 2025 under legislative rules. It's just preserving the opportunity with no risk to us.
Okay, so you're saying we file something right now and it would just be a discussion.
It's just a placeholder for that discussion to start. So it would, and really the simplest thing to do would just be redlining that language out, right? Eliminating that section of statute, and that will bring all of those parties to the table where then we as a board can decide, you know, do we want a separate committee and workshop this? Do we want to talk about it as a board? Do we want to abandon this idea? You know, but that's what's going to get folks to the table talking about it.
I've never done anything in regards to this, so has anyone else besides Jessica on this? Okay.
Yeah, it gives you a place in line, and you can amend it, you can change it.
Or you can withdraw.
I guess my whole thing is, if this has been in place since 1995, is there a burning need for it? I mean, this came up because of our budget, trying to reach the zero-based budget, and we've done that through the tariff, the service tariff. And I guess it's a matter of equity if it's fair that these groups are still getting an exemption if we don't know the justification for it. And I don't know the history of why some of those are in place. So that would also be part of my thought process is why were these put in place to begin with? And is there a justification for keeping them in place?
So 50,000 access lines is literally every operator in the state of Oregon at every telecom except for Lumen and Ziply. We're the only two that are subject to underground. And those are the same operators that are going to be doing a lot of work with all the infrastructure money coming, right? So that group is going to be doing a ton of underground work, and we're not necessarily going to have any visibility to it because they're not going to be paying those fees, but yet our services are going to be used. And I also have a small company, right? We have multiple companies as Ziply, so my small company would be affected by this. We're fine with that position. But I think we need to get the other parties to the table, and we're not going to do that unless we're suggesting that we're going to make this change to understand the issue better.
Anyone else have any comments?
Kyle,
Okay, Kyle?
Yeah, so to kind of go back to what Nate said, we're having this discussion about opening up the ORSs and the OARs at the end of a meeting, and we haven't had any time to look at any discussion for this. So as part of a matter of, let's just call it protocol, I think this is a really important discussion on one, first, is this something that we want to do? Meaning open up the rules and subject them to change whether it's our change or someone else's change, once it goes into the legislative process and the language is crafted outside of this board, it can get changed and it can really be directed in directions we may not want it to go. And so having a good strategy and a good plan for moving forward is always important when you do this. And is it really the time that we need to do this, or do we need to put the plan in place so that we can make the changes in 2025? And so that's really the discussion or my comment. And then, are we also going outside of what we are charged to do here? Meaning, should this have been on our agenda so that people could publicly comment on it? And having an action item on the agenda so that we can have a motion for it. So I just want to put that on everybody's plate. Is this the right time to do it? Do we need to have a separate meeting just to discuss this particular topic to meet a deadline? These are all kind of the things that are popping up in my mind right now.
I understand those. When is the deadline? It's at the end of this month. isn't
Yeah,
it?
and an important clarification too is if we do request the LC, nobody would see this until, session won't start until February-ish. They haven't even set a date yet. And then even after that, we have to get it introduced in committee and it goes through
Find
the
a sponsor,
process. So,
There's not, this is not us, we don't get to take any action in the legislature. We have to have a legislature, actually multiple legislators, agree that this is a concept that they want to bring forward. So this is just way before that.
Yeah, some
Right,
bills
this
that
is
we
just them we are just letting them know that we have some issues or some things that we might want to change. It's an application.
the precursor to proposed legislation or proposed legislative change. So it's internal only. It's legislative council is like the in-house counsel for the legislature, and they draft it up, and then we would have a copy of it, and then we could have it for our own discussion. And like Jessica said, we could bring it with us to meetings, but it's not publicly available until it's introduced, if it's introduced. In some cases, the LC doesn't move forward, and even if it is introduced, sometimes the bill doesn't move forward.
I would say to Kyle's comment, I think he's like, was it in our purview? Well, I mean, this board's to look at damage prevention, and that's a whole demographic that maybe that we're not having eyes on. And then also, and if it's a matter of equity, then we should. And then if we won't have another opportunity until 2025, and we don't look at the financial impacts of what that will be, then part of the reason with the issue with the tariff is we didn't look at it before, correct? I wasn't here, so we could eliminate some issues to our constituents if we plan and look at that now.
Okay, so I see two sides to this. I don't see a huge issue if we go in and we say, all right, this is something we might be looking at and get our name on the board, essentially. I don't see an issue with that because we can always withdraw, right? But I understand what Kyle's saying. I understand what Nate's saying. Get a little bit better prepared. However, we do have until February with this.
Yeah, those deadlines, yes, better.
So we need to make a decision on this today. Or we can call up another meeting.
I have
10 days.
I have two concerns with waiting. I understand being more prepared, definitely understand that perspective. I feel like this conversation has come up multiple times already.
Yep.
Board meetings this year. To your point about the exemptions, why were the exemptions created the way they were? Looks like it dates back to 1999. Were the reasons behind the exemptions, are they even still relevant to today's world with telecommunication lines? Maybe the relevancy that existed then, there's I think. So I'm in agreement with moving forward with the legislative concept. Because Melanie's point, we could always pull back
If we're not ready.
if we're not ready. But at least we have the opportunity to be ready.
So what do we
Does that
do
give
here?
you enough time
Well-
to draft something?
Yeah, yes, the easy way to do it is just redline that section, and we're removing the exceptions. That doesn't block us into having to do that, but that would get our place in line.
Thank you.
So we need a motion. Yes, Dave?
Oh, I had a question, but I can wait until if there's a motion. in a second. Are we sure that we would be eligible for short session because it is fiscally, it's a fiscal impact?
We're not contributing to general fund.
So the only general fund.
It's general fund and capital budget. That's limited to policy scope around those two topics. So it's a supplemental session. It's only 30 days too, which is, can't imagine making a policy change this big in a 30-day session, right? We want that 6-month session to have this conversation. Okay, do I hear a motion? Oh, hell. I've been voted down enough times today. What's another one? Only been once. I move that the OUNC submit a legislative concept to refine the revision or the exemptions contained in 757-552 sub 4.
I'll second.
Johnny seconds. Did you get it? Stop. Did you get it?
Absolutely not.
Oh, let me email it to you right now.
That would be wonderful.
Yep, got it. Johnny seconds.
I got Johnny and Jessica.
Do I hear discussion? Any discussion? Yes, Nate?
I just want to reiterate that just because we have a timeline in place doesn't mean we have to take action. We're just coming to this now. You know, having this legislative process doesn't indicate to any board member that we're considering taking action on submitting anything. And so I just think it's really poor policy on our behalf. Just because there's a deadline, you know, it's our fault as a board not to see this sooner to run into this deadline. Just because there is a deadline and we have to wait till 2025. Well, we should have been on top of it months ago. We knew session this deadline was coming. But to get to this point and feel like we have to make a decision as a board, I just think it's really poor policy and the board have to go. So that's my personal opinion.
I think that's fair. I think this could be a precursor to any work we do in 2025 too. If we don't bring this forward in the 2023 session, anything we do now could be relevant to what we do in the future.
I guess I slightly disagree in the sense that I feel like this has been discussed multiple times, but not directly that we were going to put through the legislative. So yeah, that decision does feel really quick. We have to make that decision immediately. The conversation around these exemptions.
I agree with that part of it, but I don't think there's been any discussion as a board of what actually action we want to take as a board. So we know there's an issue, we know there's concern, we talk about it every time we make tariff adjustments. But we've never had a single conversation about each of those line items. Well, do we change it from 500 to 250? Is it to 100? Is it, do we adjust the max? You know, none of those discussions have ever been had. It's just, we know there's an issue up there, but we haven't had any discussion about how to solve this issue in the direction the board wants to go. So to just say, okay, we're eliminating the whole exemption. Well, I don't know if I feel like we should eliminate the whole exemption. I mean, maybe we should eliminate 1 or 2 lines of it or adjust it. But the idea to eliminate and then bring that forward, I just, for me, it just feels like not a good idea. But that's my opinion. I'm only one person.
Yeah,
I
thank you
respect
for
the
that extra detail. Yes.
Jessica? So we're talking about we need to make sure we're keeping our lens clear on this. This is not a rule that we control, that we have direct control over. We have to
extended as a result of having worked through that body. And there's no guarantees, as Kyle aptly pointed out. I completely agree that in our agenda, how we're representing action items we may be potentially needing to take needs to evolve, right? We've gotten to a point where we're writing policy briefs now. This matter has been dispensed of in committee, so it would have been great for committee to submit a recommendation and a policy brief with a recommended action so that maybe you feel better prepared to make this decision. All of that being said, we meet monthly right now for a reason, because we have a lot of business and stuff's happening really, really, really fast. This is unfortunately a product of that too. So I agree with you, Nate, but at the same time, I don't want the process to prevent us from taking action.
We can always withdraw. That's my thing. If we don't feel prepared, we can't.
Kyle has his hand up. Kyle?
Hi, I know I'm kind of a pest.
All the time.
I want to make sure that we're all comfortable with putting this forward without having it on an agenda and having public notice of our intent to start to proceed with legislative change. And I guess I would ask, do we need to, is there a clarification that is necessary to ensure that we don't have to have this presented at a public meeting for this process? Ahead of just having this come up at the end of a meeting and have it on the agenda so it is listed in public notice.
So it was on the agenda, and as far as what I am understanding is once we file, then it becomes a point of conversation with the other utilities. Is that correct?
Yeah, typically legislative concepts, I mean, individual companies can go to an agency and ask for a legislative concept to be introduced. Even stakeholders, right? They can go directly to a legislator and say, hey, we have this really bad problem. Will you drop a bill that, gets to this issue? Just because the legislative concept is available doesn't mean there's legislation that is being proposed at that point. We're just heading down that path.
To clarify that, it says discuss legislative process. It does not discuss a motion to present something for to meet the deadline of the legislative council. So the old business is to continue this discussion. So I guess that's my question, is that if we are presenting this forward because it is proposing a change to our OARs with respect to exemptions, do we need to have it spelled out what we are doing so that the public can comment on this? Having a one-line item doesn't seem like it is providing enough information for individuals to comment on it. That's kind of my comment.
Thank you, Kyle. All right, so we're in the middle of a motion here. Any more discussion? Okay.
I think we need to be able to answer. I'm looking at the public meeting laws about agendas and if we can do it. I think we need to know the answer to that question. Full transparency. I think we need to know if it's not listed on the agenda, can we take action?
None of our motions are listed on the agenda though. And our record is the minutes. That's why Scott keeps the minutes the way he does, where the motion is dictated and the vote is recorded.
I don't know, what action are you taking other than making a proposal? You are a stakeholder group. This board is designed to make rules and policy without that same process that goes out to other state agencies.
Okay. Discussion is over, I'm assuming. Yes? All right. All approved, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Everyone. Should we raise our hands?
Voice vote might be a good thing.
Yes.
Yeah, ask it, well,
Call out the members.
if they're, are we gonna have opposition?
I have a feeling we are.
I call for that vote and then give it back.
Okay. So all approve, please say aye and raise your hand. How about that?
The opposite, I think. If I know who opposed, then I can.
Oh, easier to record the nays.
Okay, all opposed, please say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Kyle? Nate?
I have Kyle and Nate opposed. Any others?
We also need to call for those that abstain.
Yes, please. And all that abstain, please say aye and raise your hand. Okay.
This is Kevin. I am not, I'm a non-voting member at this point, so my vote will not count.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. All right. So motion passes. Okay, moving on. New business. Jessica, do you want to do your new business?
I would love to do my new business, thank you.
Okay,
I promise to make it brief.
all right, because I'm getting hungry.
Yes.
Oh,
So, I've heard a lot of things during today's board meeting, and I have my own experience regarding enforcement of our rules. I'm a little concerned that I hear OSHA doing enforcement actions being referred either directly by utilities or in being engaged by OPUC staff. OSHA's investigations, findings, they don't have the ability to assign or assess penalties on our behalf. We have no visibility to those investigations. I'm very concerned that we don't have a real clear picture of potential violations of the dig laws that we are supposed to be enforcing or supporting. So Melanie, earlier today, you made a mention of an incident report. And I'm wondering if we as a board need to consider a threshold of all complaints come as an incident report. And we then refer those complaints for enforcement by PUC or by OSHA, right? Because then at least we have visibility to what's going on. And I'll give you a little more granularity as to where my concerns come from. Back in April, I personally submitted an enforcement action to the Public Utilities Commission because we had one utility operator that for multiple weeks failed to put paint on the ground and refused to because they didn't think we should be allowed to install utilities in this particular area. Not that we didn't have authorization, they just didn't like it. So I was informed that my complaint was going to be dismissed because there was incomplete information. Well, much like we heard earlier today, I was being asked to take pictures of no paint on the ground. What am I going to take pictures? There's no damage. We didn't excavate because we didn't have paint on the ground. That would have been a violation of the rule and of the law for me to operate as a utility operator. So because I didn't violate the law and I'm reporting someone else who did, my complaint was dismissed. Similarly, I received a complaint this week that it was an investigation by an excavator who submitted a complaint that covered all utilities operating in that area that delayed paint by 2 days. Well, in this area, simply happens to be aerial, so we wouldn't have anything to put down on the ground anyway. And we were being investigated. So I think there's inconsistencies in how staff at the Public Utilities Commission is treating these enforcement investigations on our behalf. I would ask the board to have a discussion about interim steps or expanding the obligations to include OSHA in this conversation. So hopefully we can get our arms better around what's going on, because I don't think we have a clear picture right now.
Does the dirt reporting for underground diggings, does it have a portion that doesn't necessarily result in a dig-in where you could report essentially into dirt, what you're talking about.
Not all companies report into dirt.
Right. I'm
It's
kind
not-
of heading somewhere with that though,
Yeah.
and that's,
And your miss.
yeah.
I believe it
near
does have a
miss
near miss
Or
data
or
center.
something like that, where if we get to a point where we have mandatory dirt reporting, which is being discussed, obviously, can we utilize that reporting system to find the information that you're looking for the board?
I don't know that mandatory dirt reporting is gonna be universally accepted. Because there's some costs associated with that, you know, utility operators are currently doing it. I think that's incredible. It is not uniform across all utilities in Oregon.
But it's also not incidents. It's who was at fault.
Right.
So no, they're just at fault. I do see, again, I see both sides. I see the incident, you know, you have somebody that is not wanting to paint. That's an incident. However, are they really at fault? Well, obviously they are at fault, but not according to what we have going on here. So I see that. And so maybe that is something that, again, you know, something on our website, you can go in and say incidents, or we can do something like that where it's not actually a PUC complaint. It would be an incident. Where they come in. I don't know, suggestion. Would anyone use it besides us that are, so they know about it?
And could we staff it?
It would be Josh and Kenny.
Right, right. I mean, that could be a potentially big volume. I just don't know how much we're missing right now.
Kind of just describing the RA process as it was.
Megan has her hand up.
Megan?
I just wanted to ask, would that, I don't want to take away from the PUCs, and then also what response would that put on us to report things that maybe aren't necessarily incidents that go beyond an incident, where they use that link instead of going to the PUC for something?
If I Megan, on that comment, on your comment on, this is Kevin with the PUC. I think what's not being presented here is the full context of why things are dismissed. You know, I'm not going to comment on ongoing investigations, because we still need to complete our investigation process, and if settlements need to be made, we need to do that, you know, in the most appropriate manner. So what we are working towards is as far as the benefit of a clear picture going forward, is being able to report out to the board what we are seeing. It will include OSHA referrals that staff makes. And really it's going to open up the picture of what we're looking at and how enforcement is being administered. And to anything related as far as processes in the past, you know, that was in the past. But we partnered with OSHA for a very specific reason. And it's been effective. And it's, you know, once we're able to report out with the data sets that we have, unless there's any questions.
We missed the last.
We missed the last few minutes. Minute, maybe.
I was talking and I thought I was being heard, so.
So I say, Jessica, we hear you. Kevin, I think we need to, we need to get your report. Sarah, and the Federation's taking
I
care of.
appreciate. Being presented.
So with that said, yeah, we just can't hear you right now. So with that said, do we have any other new business? No? Good with the order? Ernie?
Right about user group. In DC in 2 weeks. Did you have any announcements?
We're excited to have representatives from Oregon. Josh, you're helping out with the legislative roundtable, right?
Excellent. It'll be fun,
All right.
informative.
Look, leader. I thank you. I was waiting for somebody to say that.
I second it.
Second?
Yes.
All right. All approved?
Aye.
All opposed, state the same. Meeting adjourned.
Where we at?
Yeah, sorry, I forgot to say that.
Had a book there for a while.